5 minutes on who on earth we are, because I suspect it's not a brand you immediately recognize, although you may know one of the products we're responsible for in Europe. OPP distributes in Europe for the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, which is possibly the widest used psychometric instrument in the commercial world. So a set of logos here at the bottom. I suspect you may recognize MBTI, but we distribute quite a wide variety of products for a number of different users in occupational psychology. Many of them owned by the Myers-Briggs Federation, or CPP, who are the publishers based in California, but 16PF is our own, so we do in fact develop and publish our own psychometric instruments. The business has been in existence since 1987. It has a worldwide client base. Our own offices exist in 1 or 2 places in Europe and in the US, and we do have quite a significant size now of global partner network who deliver training on our behalf and in some cases actually sell product for us. Our business is around personality assessment and the application of psychometric instruments inside business contexts. We are well known for our academic work and speak regularly, deliver papers to the British Psychological Society, etc. This is just a very small cross-section, and this kind of logo soup a lot of organisations can do, but it is, in this instance, indicative of the penetration that both OPP and the product set do have in significant businesses. A number of these are case studies for us where we've worked with organisations for them to get very significant value out of their investment in this area. Now, a little bit about how we do it. Essentially, we provide product, but we guide people how to use it. We provide product through the context of an electronic assessment platform, which is our own website, where respondents are able to take questionnaires, and then practitioners are able to download reports based on the results of those questionnaires. Essentially, we take our products to market in 4 ways. So we encourage people to qualify in their use, so effectively to add to their own knowledge and use the products themselves through qualification training. We help them to get better at their use over time. We do it with them, with our own consultants, who may work with them to develop interventions which they can then take on from there inside their own organisations. And we also do it for them with completely outsourced solutions to provide leadership or to run assessment centres inside their companies. So, what led us to the place we are now? Let's begin with a little bit of planning. So first of all, back before I joined the company in the summer of 2011, a period, if you like, of recognition, of identifying that we were in a position where we needed some genuine change. So the easiest way to summarize it would be to say digital wasn't delivering. Possibly a more accurate way to look at it was that we didn't really have digital. So we did have a website, which was very much sort of a very two-dimensional, very straightforward, SharePoint-based website with a little bit of a content management back-end to run a shop, so a very old version of Ectron that was deep inside the system somewhere. Very, very poor use factor for the customer, so quite difficult to find what you needed. We couldn't deal with it. We couldn't edit it very effectively. We couldn't push out the ownership of editing to our country offices effectively either. To describe the visuals as dated is probably doing them a bit of a favour, I have to say. And on top of that, it was difficult for us to set goals for online activity or KPIs, so we weren't really able to get very much that was meaningful out of it. We also have a shop, but it contributes very little to our revenue, and that's a big goal for us going forward, as you'll hear. And the primary reason for that is we can only really sell static materials on it. So because we don't have anything real time, we can sell books, we can sell paper things, but we can't sell credits for electronic assessment. So that puts us at a bit of a disadvantage when it comes to electronic trading. So that's a big focus for us in the future. So a big need for change. From the customer's point of view, it was not a very pleasant engagement with us. It's very hard to find content on that old website. It played to really a single persona, something of an academic one, so a qualified occupational psychologist. It was much more of an engine to help them find material for research It was very little on it that was to do with the business reasons that you would invest in the products, or the kind of overall solutions that the business and its partner environment could deliver. So it was a real risk to the perception of OPP as a brand and what it was capable of delivering. In particular, we only had the one persona. So we weren't talking to business people as to why they would want to invest in this area. We were talking directly to occupational psychologists only. Now, it was definitely the case that we were encouraging people to call us to transact. We haven't moved away from that to any great extent yet, but we certainly helped that transition away, as you'll hear. The danger there is that if we can't act in a quick way, if we can't be agile, we may lose a practitioner to a competitor, particularly since they may be qualified in instruments other than ours. So it's very important that we get to them quickly with the information they need, or they could just as easily go and buy from someone else. Now, where did that put us on the maturity model? There isn't a 0, so we'll go with 1. Presence, yes, but very basic in style. A newsletter, yes, some very limited analytics, but nothing that was persona related or anything that was really helpful going forward. And there, I have to say, is what we had. Now, I can't be too hard on it because we still do have it in several countries. But that's the base we came from. So not the worst website you'll ever see, but unlikely to win any prizes in the short term, I think. Now, I joined the company on February the 1st, 2012. So my arrival was part of an initiative in the business to try and increase, if you like, increase its commerciality, so widen its appeal and change the way in which it interacted with its market, so widen its view of its market and how best to respond to it. I have a little bit of a background in this area. Amongst my previous roles, I used to be VP of Sales for SDL for just 5 years. So, and I was part of the M&A team that acquired Tridion. It wasn't my part of the business, but I was part of the team that helped to acquire it. And I would very much have liked to have bought it, but ultimately I didn't need to. So when we came, as you'll see, when we came to make a decision, there was no need to go in that direction. It was very clear we needed a really good quality CMS. And my take on this was, without the CMS underpinning what we were doing, we really would have a real problem moving down this road at all. We did consider quite a lot of alternatives. We did have an old copy of Ectron sitting in the shop, so we took a look at what they had to offer. I was tempted to go and talk to Tridion, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to afford it. So even with my ex-employees discount, it wasn't going to work. All of the things we looked at were .NET, and the reason for that is that the rest of our development in the organization is .NET based, and in particular our own developments for the assessment platform are .NET. So it was important that we were able to future-proof there so that we could look towards some detailed integration over time. So why Sitecore? All of the function we could ever want for a very competitive price level in comparison with a lot of the other product out there. Good reputation, very good feedback from Gartner, putting it up in the quadrant with products like Tridion, which were way up there with the big organizations, whereas we were just an SME. So we knew we could get the functionality that would give us the ability to compete at that level. Good depth of functionality, lots of good stuff, and some developer capability, which is important to us as you see our roadmap going forward. Now, the real separator here was the DMS. And as you'll see when we chose Fusionworkshop to work with, we wanted to be in a position to roll out a DMS, and we were unconvinced of the capability of the competitors in that regard. With an agency, we did have an existing relationship with a creative agency at that time, and a lot of work was done before my joining, some very good work by a very sort of dedicated little team inside our marketing group to get some material together. So some good work was done in advance. Not all of it reusable, as it turned out, but all with the best of intention. So we had a vision of what was required. I think if we move on from there, I think what was really key for us was to decide on the business goals we had for the short to medium term, but also when I joined, the key was to get the team together and actually get us to do it. And I think that they'd done some fine work, but it was going to need us to really get going and hit the road and get something delivered. So we had to get our CMS together. We needed to get a partner who'd support us during this process. We need to take on the personas that have been defined, where a lot of work had been done already to widen the persona base, to talk into business rather than just into technical practitioners. And also, we needed to get a lot of content produced in a short period of time. So in essence, a stable platform for us to move forward. Now, when it came to a partner, there's a plethora of Sitecore partners out there. We went through a formal sales process. It was a delicious experience for me, both the choice of the product and the partner, because for the first time for 25 years I was the other side of the table. So it was great. We had a lot of written responses. We went through the usual process you'd expect. And we got good references. For me, references are very important. Having worked the other side of the table for a long time, ultimately you know that the references are the thing that will make the difference when you make this selection, because you're presented with a lot of very shiny images of how it's all going to be, and ultimately you want to try and de-risk it as much as you can as a buyer. So the references are important. When it came to references, the key for us was finding somebody who could show us a DMS working. Now, this was extremely difficult for the other finalists who couldn't show us anything effectively at all, really. So we had a lot of demonstration, but nothing in action. It was equally difficult for Ben, but he chose an innovative approach, which was to show us how they were using it on their own website, which, given the lack of really big references for it at that time, was a quite an effective way to handle it. And we spent quite a time going through how it was done on Fusion's own site, and it gave us enough confidence to know that we'd be able to do something with it in the future.
Good job too.
Yeah. I can see I'm doing you some good here, don't that me?
Yes, very good. Carry on.
Right.
So the summer and autumn of 2012, we got through to the build process. OPP committed to doing creative first, which is an approach we see a great deal with all the web projects that we work on, and not content. So the wireframes that were created weren't necessarily compatible with specifically Sitecore and DMS. The design and look and feel was really considered before the business goals were actually set. And without a consideration of how Sitecore functioned or how the multi-layered content delivered by DMS in a dynamic environment was actually going to deliver for the organization. So that resulted in a fair amount of rework. And we didn't do this in Azure, we did this in Sitecore. So we do all of our prototyping work and wireframing work directly in Sitecore, where we have what we call a foundation site for Sitecore, which is a pre-built Sitecore installation with UI patterns, and objects and all of the modules that we deploy with customers pre-built, pre-tested, and predefined. So we were in a pretty strong place where we know that this build works with DMS, functions with DMS, and then took through wireframing within that. And from that, then the team at OPP reworked some of their content strategy to define a plan of how they were going to not only migrate content into Sitecore during the build process, using objects rather than pages, which is a very abstract way of doing it, but the only way of doing it to enable DMS to function properly. And then from that, they move forward. We also used an agile methodology of defining user stories and system stories. We use Scrum inherently internally, and that was great with OPP because their internal development team also used Scrum. So the project managers were on similar ground and an effective ground. So the builds put in place a good IA and a good improved user experience for the customer of OPP. The site had a revised look and feel, and it vastly improved the ability of the marketing team internally to deliver content in an effective and quick manner, which is really what impinged them before. So all of a sudden, they can actually do their job and they can deliver. And it provided solid foundations for what's to come. There wasn't a great deal more than that delivered from this first phase. It was delivering against those set business criteria of new site, new foundations. So dynamic targeting content was important, enabling them to deliver dynamic content quickly and also delivering personalized content using DMS, which is beginning to be rolled out now, as well as blog and social functions. So the blog particularly is a thought leadership tool for the team at OPP who work with not only academics, but also specific business people. And multilingual. So the first multilingual site that was rolled out was the Irish site, which isn't necessarily very multilingual, but it works in exactly the same manner. So it is a different language within Sitecore. It sits in the same stack as a French site would, and it works in the same way. But the lovely thing about an Irish site from day one is it can fall back immediately to English where there is a page missing. So you can deliver multilingual, you can deliver the functionality for OPP without actually having to go through the entire process of outsourcing all the translation for all the content, which is something that's happening now. So did phase one succeed for OPP? There were immediate new business successes through the site that are measurable. So Clive can mention those if he chooses to. The project was delivered on time and to budget, which was a really, really big, important thing for OPP. You have a number of projects internally through the IT range that just haven't quite hit time frames that they should have done. It united the internal staff that things can be delivered on time, and it's received a lot of external praise from the customer base. So, DMS is functioning, and the digital journey has started and is moving on. So, the key bit, the movement through the digital maturity model to get to where OPP could be in the future and will be in the future. So where are we now? What are we doing in 2013? And what's been put in place? So.
And it's definitely worth mentioning that this was done with a team who hadn't done this before. So, you know, I'd been involved in CMS, but from the other side, and our marketing team had not implemented a CMS before, and there's a lot to be said for the work that occurred inside OPP. Where we were particularly fortunate is that the company's very good at pulling together. So unusually for this kind of project, a lot of content was rewritten and was ready well in advance of us going live, which my experience of this is it's typically the other way around. So that was a great credit to our organisation to be able to get this material ready quickly. So we went from a place where we had something that didn't deliver at all, and we're already at a place where there's real difference that we can see in the organisation. The social media part's important for us already. We're in a business sector that thrives on discussion and debate about technique and practice, and is always very keen to see things that are occurring in its space. So it's given us already a completely different capability to use social media effectively and to grow our presence. It's very nice for me, as being responsible for this on the exec team of the business, to be able to set KPIs about cloud score versus competitors' cloud score, which is something I could never have dreamt of doing when I first joined. So it's a really good step forward already. And new business wins, I could give you one very clear example where the improved SEO and the calls to action and the style of the site in terms of being about business solutions rather more than before has led to an immediate win. We've had an engagement very recently with the Maltese state airline, Air Malta, for some consultancy activity, and we were fortunate that they came looking for someone to do some work. They had an MBTI practitioner inside their organisation, and our improved SEO meant that they got to us quicker or possibly may not have got to us on the previous site environment. And the journey they took when they reached the site gave them sufficient confidence about our ability to deliver the kind of assessment work they were looking for that they actually made contact with us directly. And we've now won that, and we've done a good job over the last month. So we put the news release up on Friday and put it through all the social media channels, and I can't ask for any more than that from a stage one site. So it's a genuine win, which we think we can pin to it straight away. So on into the goals. We need to rebuild our online shop. This will be a complicated challenge for us because we have an internal ERP project going on to move from one product to another, which, as those of you who've been through it will know, is akin to torture. And it's very long torture as well. So we've got some challenges around that. But it also has some challenges in functionality. The way we operate is a lot of our revenue comes from the delivery of electronic reports, and people buy credits to use them. And at the moment, they cannot buy them online, so they have to call us to do it. So how we make that work is really key to revenue growth for us, because we will move immediately to being a 24/7 environment when we have that shop. We also have a number of European sites which currently are in lackluster version 0.1, which you saw earlier. So we're very, very keen to get them moving quickly because we want the social media benefits in particular that we've seen to be reflected in our other European sites. We want to look hard at mobile. We are seeing an increase in access to our site from mobile devices, so we want to consider where we go there. But I think most important in the short term is personalization. We have a tremendous opportunity to use personalization to differentiate ourselves in our space. We have such clearly defined personas, a lot of whom are looking for genuine help from us. And our goal is to be the easiest partner for them to work with. Whether they're an individual practitioner or they work in a learning development team in a large corporation, or they're a line manager who feels that some investment in this area would be useful, we need to give them the material they need. So for a practitioner, we need to give them help in selling what they do, and we need to make it the easiest place for them to go if they're going to deliver a leadership exercise of some sort inside one of their customers. So we need to be the go-to company. And we think personalization plays a big part in that. The shop, very quickly, as I say, it's tough. We've got an in-house development team. We're beginning a proof of concept. We're very excited by what we'll be able to do, and we'll be working with Fusion to make sure that this happens in a sensible way. So we want to make sure our development team is guided on how best to perform in order for us to get where we need to go. Quite complex integration required here, even down to the point where we can't have someone buy unless we've checked that they're qualified to use that instrument. So there's a lot of web services-based activity will need to occur into and out of ERP to check that every time. So quite a complex exercise. Multilingual is absolutely key right now. We need to push this out really, really quickly. It's been a goal for us for a long time, not only to do it, but also to devolve the local aspects of news and social media effectively to country offices which don't have very many personnel. So typically don't have full-time marketing resources. So we feel this will be something we'll be able to achieve quite quickly. And then mobile, it's important, possibly not quite as important for us right now as some other things, but it's something we do need to keep a very careful eye on, I think. Now, key for us is personalization. The persona work we've done is quite well defined. We're moving to roll out a first stage of this now. The key for us is to be able to deliver content based on the browsing journey. It's something that our competitors don't do particularly well from our research so far, and we do think it will differentiate us. It means differentiating the calls to action. It means creating quite a lot of content, because we will have to repurpose content we've got to make it work for that particular set of messages we want to deliver. So that's very important to us in the short term. The future? The real future. Go on then. So where we want to get to as quickly as we can is something bigger than this. We want to be a self-service environment for practitioners. So we want to give them a place that they can go to where they manage their own interactions. So this will be getting their hands on the right kind of content, driving gated content for themselves based on the kind of customer they are. So how to help them sell their services, how to help them deliver better, how to widen their repertoire when they're delivering services to their clients. We want to surface account information without them having to call us. At the moment, we have a customer support team in our headquarters in Oxford of 10 or 12 people who spend an awful lot of their time on the telephone dealing with straightforward queries which could be handled on a portal very simply. So we want to make sure we've got the right kinds of interaction and we're driving people in the right directions. Now, we're okay. We work fine. We produce good revenues and we're a profitable bunch, but we need to change. And unless we're effective at going down this route towards self-sufficiency, there is a danger to us as a business. It is a relatively fast-moving sector now. For a long time, it's been very academic in style, but there are new players in the market, and we need to take advantage of what we've got, particularly Myers-Briggs, which is an extremely well-known brand in Europe, to move forward quickly. So we will keep Fusion Workshop as a partner, but we will achieve self-sufficiency. So they won't actively work with us in the future quite as much as they would do now. Sitecore's vision, we think it'll be a reality. We see DMS driving our business. We see it as the key differentiator, and Sitecore will be central to all of that. So where will we be? Where are we now? Well, that's where we're going for. We're going for the areas of the journey which actually allow us to interact with customers in a way that's very specific to their needs. And not just what we perceive their needs to be, but what they tell us their needs are through the interaction.
So to finish up, I wanted to look at customer life cycle, lifetime customers, as that's a theme for the day. And if we get to the future stage with OPP, to that far right-hand side of the customer maturity model, our customer life cycle with OPP will have run its course. We will, in effect, have gone through the entire spectrum of being engaged as an initial consultant, through the build, through DMS evolution, and through a phase of ensuring that the internal development team at OPP have adequate knowledge transfer so they can be self-sufficient as an organization without a partner to assist them. We'll obviously be there as a consultant if required, or if their dev team is busy with other internal projects. But you know, our customer life cycle with OPP at that point will have finished, and we'll be working on other projects. That's not to say that Sitecore's will. Sitecore's customer's life cycle with OPP will be ongoing. The application will be very much embedded in the organization. Digital will be key to their route to market and their go-to-market strategy. And OPP staff will continue to be trained across the board. So they have 4 Sitecore certified devs at present. And the solution will continue to evolve with OPP as an organization. That said, OPP... Well,
the slide says it. I don't need to say very much, really. We've definitely got a greater level of engagement already. That's very evident to see. Over the long term, we're confident that we'll get our longer-term customers working with us at a far lower level of cost. But what's important is that the self-service has to come with improved service. So we need to keep recycling and improving what we're doing so we really are the first choice for people in this sector. And we think it will encourage business to grow. You know, the economic climate out there is tough at the moment, and it's differentiation that makes the difference, I think, that gives us a chance to grow, which is why we're so convinced that we're making the right moves here. Our practitioner base is a very large group of effectively channel partners. If we can make their life easier and more successful, then they are our resellers. And if we do it this way, we make a massive sales channel at what is effectively fairly low unit cost. So it's very important for us to embrace this as soon as it's practical.
Thank you very much.
I think that's probably all we have to say. Hello, MC.
Hello. Cheers. Oh, I think mine's working anyway. That's great. So any questions for OPP or for Fusion Workshop reference to the project? They did a very good job of explaining how it went through. No worries.
I didn't hear any. I didn't really get how long was the build process for this.
I can tell you that. So that's an important thing we did miss. We bought the Sitecore software on the 31st of March at 5:25 in the afternoon. But it may even have been 5:45. It was such a pleasure to be the other side of the table just this once. It was great. So we'd done the persona work, obviously, and some of the design work that did need some rework, but the site went live on October the 15th. We were ready to go live on the target I'd originally set our team, which was the end of September. But at the last moment, we made a decision just to slow down a little bit, just to iron out 1 or 2 last things. So we could have gone live at the end of September, but we thought it would be prudent just to make sure we got it right. So broadly speaking, from purchase of the software to go live was 6 months.
Is that a normal speed then?
It depends very much on the customer and the workload that we've got on at any one point in time, is the honest answer. I would say it could have been quicker. There was, obviously, project startup, there was a lot of time spent ratifying the work done prior by the design agency to ensure that was all good. We knew that long-term roadmap DMS was going to be critical. We didn't want to be in a position, and Clive made very clear that we didn't want to be in a position where we'd be doing rework. Everything had to be extensible long term, so there was a fair amount of thought and time went into the scoping exercise up front. So the actual build process was probably nearer 10 weeks.
I think it's fair to say as well that a factor is always that you're dealing with people who don't know what they don't know. So genuinely, we hadn't done this before, and although there's an enormous will to get things done in the organisation, you do need somebody to take you back to basics to make sure you don't make mistakes, so you don't wander off into the dark part of the woods and waste a bunch of time. So I think it could easily have taken a great deal longer had we not been disciplined about it. Marshalled and all that kind of good management stuff.
Very good. Gentleman at the back, please, left-hand side.
I'll do the mic.
I think she's got one.
Hi, you mentioned you have, you created personas that you're using or repurposing content for. So do you have a persona model that you're using in Sitecore? I mean, how are you applying this content? How do you recognize the persona that's visiting your site?
So the personas are defined against profiles within the DMS section of Sitecore. And then there are also pattern cards. The pattern cards reflect scored values against each either content object or page within Sitecore. So as and when somebody's going through a journey within the site and their score is aggregated through that journey, that score and the number of pages they go through and the type of journey they go on is then mirrored back against the pattern card. And that pattern card applies to a profile, which is the persona, if you want the short answer.
I think the longer answer is probably chargeable.
I think that's all.
Given your history with this deal, I'd like to you obviously present with a lot of the challenges in the language handling.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, is it your plans to go with the data integration of Sitecore?
We are giving it some thought. The process for translating in our organisation is quite a technical one because of the translation we've typically done in the past. So the translation of psychometric instruments involves 2 forward translations and a lot of work with subject matter experts because the tone of the translation is absolutely vital. In the past, when we've done marketing translations, it's been fairly limited in scope, particularly since the sites didn't really change that much in their previous form. So we are looking at it. We've just recently hired someone into a project management role who comes from the translation industry in order to refine our processes for commercial translation rather than just the technical translation. And at the moment, we're implementing a CAT tool in order to, not Trados, incidentally, because I can't afford that either. So it's slightly lower budgets than I'd have had of this deal. So we're implementing a CAT tool, and we're taking a look at what the outputs will be from that before we decide exactly how to do it. Now, we have to make the decision quickly because we want to get going, and we have had some helpful dialogue with Clay Tablet, and it's likely that's the route we'll go, but I just want to make sure we know what value we're going to be getting out of it. Now we've finalised how we're going to handle the sites, so we don't get a misstart, and again, so we don't end up spending more than we need to, effectively.
Great. So that concludes this session. So thank you very much again to Ben and Clive.